Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Tuesday, October 14th. I would now like to call tonight's meeting to order, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that the District of Sooke is located on the territories of the Sooke and Sianu Nations. Council will now turn your attention to item 3 and look for approval. So that would be that the agenda for the October 14th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted with the addition of the supplementary information, which is on your table and is the OCP correspondence for item number 7.7. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Bateman. All those in favor, please. That's carried unanimously. Next up is meeting minutes under 4.1, and that is that the following council meeting minutes be adopted as presented, and that is for September 29, 2025. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Bateman. Any questions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. There's a gentleman looking for a seat. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And that takes us then to item 5, which is our report of our Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Worship. Nothing further to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. And council will have time to discuss this later, or unless you had any questions or comments you would like to raise now, members of council? No, it's on the consent. Okay, that brings us straight to our public question and comment period. So this area here is reserved for members of the public that would like to speak to any item on tonight's agenda. You could please come forward and introduce yourself. We just require your name, and please also let us know which agenda number you would like to speak to tonight. And we will start the timer for 2 minutes per speaker. Thank you. Sorry, can you just turn on the microphone? Then we can all hear you.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good to be with you again. My name is Veronica Pemberton Billing. I live in Sooke. I'm going to be speaking about agenda item 7.6, and I'd like the clock to stop at this moment because I'd like to refer the council, all the councillors and perhaps the staff, to the actual page on which I will be speaking, because I think that will make a difference. So if I could have the clock reset to 1:50, that would be great. And the page is page 192 of the agenda, which is page 6 of the What Have We Learned report. Oh, that would be great too. And so if we could put it up there, then everyone would know what I'm talking about. And if the counselors have it, that would be great. So, are we doing that?
No, I would just need you to go through your comments.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So, all right. So under key learnings, this is on the official community plan, and this is the report to council. After the introduction, the very first statement of summary in red, it's the first statement in red, is strong public support for the draft OCP and its changes. And then there's 4 data points. And if you just look at the numbers, you'll see 100%, 62%, 65%, and 6 letters of support. So I appreciate that council has an enormous job. The agenda tonight is well over 1,000 pages. This report, I can't remember how many pages. I think I have 119 pages. If you were skimming this report, you would see strong public support in red, and you would see these figures. And I wanted to go through these data points because 100%, not one of them deals with support for the draft OCP. 100% of participating open house attendees felt they were better informed after attending the event. That says nothing about a support. And it's also a nothing burger because it doesn't say anything more than a teacher-parent meeting. If you show up to something, you're going to be better informed. So that we have 100%, that would be the first data point. This is extraordinary. 62% of survey respondents were 16 people. 65% of survey respondents were 17 people. There are 17,128 people living in Sooke as of the CRD estimate for 2024. 16 people is 0.09% that we're putting in this as a data point indicating strong public support. In addition, the survey respondents indicated that the draft OCP provides very or mostly clear policy guidance. Doesn't say anything about support. I could answer yes to that, except I don't support the OCP. 65% of survey respondents felt they were very well or well informed. Says nothing about support. Nothing. The last data point, 6 letters of support, does say something about support. However, in the appendix, as you go through, there were 4 letters opposing it clearly, and many, many, many letters of concerns. So if you didn't come out, which is unusual for a resident to do, and say, I do not support this. If you didn't say that specifically, it wasn't listed as a letter of opposition. So I think this is extremely misleading, and that it comes under as data points for strong public support, that people read this. And you know, if someone tells you an untruth or starts to fabricate something or gives you inappropriate data, you question the whole thing. And I question the bias included in this.
Okay,
And
thank you, Ms. Pemberton.
thank you.
Other speakers tonight, please.
Good evening, Norma Miro, and I'm a Sooke resident on Bell Vista. There's an item this evening that's going to be discussed later in camera, and I wanted to put a face to that. I think the information I provided hopefully will be clear, and I have questions about the W7 zoning and what's going on that particular property, and where it stands and where it's going. So most of the councilors would have read it, but I wanted to be here to make sure it was addressed, and I guess it will be this evening in camera. So I wait that decision and what the responses or discussion from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers tonight?
Yes. And these are some letters as well. Those are letters of Ellen Lures. They're letters of not support for the OCP. And one of the letters was a letter that was sent to council and was not published in this huge 1,139 agenda. And there was, and I know that the mayor had also said that some of the, sometimes when letters are sent or comments are sent to council, that they should be forwarded to info at Sooke. And I don't know if that's happening, because I think that might have happened with one of these letters. So I don't know if all the members are aware, council members. So I'd like to speak as a member of the public. I've consistently been opposed to the draft OCP. It is so unclear as to the meaning, and the net zero component is so costly and ambiguous. Will add a tremendous cost to developing and building opportunity, further driving up the cost of housing and also putting builders, developers, and carpenters out of business. This is not to be taken lightly. People are already struggling to pay rent and mortgages. Building codes have been one of the primary costs to increase building costs. The climate action proposed by this draft is onerous. Pushing people to EV when EV companies in central Canada are shutting down will be a huge drain on our already fragile electrical needs. We've been having water restrictions for years, yet we keep building. Where's the proof we will have enough water? In this document, there is language to restrict outdoor watering, not good growing food or keeping trees and plants alive to create the oxygen from the CO2. The density proposed is ridiculous, and we cannot accommodate the numbers neither for environment's sake or for transportation. As the province will not address the transportation issue, we cannot build out anymore. The province needs to address Highway 14, and we, the local taxpayers, should not be paying for the extension of Throop Road. It is very costly for little gain and not sustainable for the development proposed. The amount of people who did online survey and said they sort of supported and were unclear far surpassed the 2 or the 6 that thought the draft OCP was great. The Ag Plan, part of the OCP, has not been updated. The Master Trails and Transportation Plan written by the Urban Systems had little or no input from the public. The cost of upkeep for trails proposed have not been discussed. Just now in our budget, the 1.4 million budgeted for upkeep for just the present boardwalk. How much can taxpayers afford? When working on this plan, we were told that we're not allowed to put anything into the plan which would increase the cost to taxpayers. This plan does everything which would increase the cost of taxpayers via housing and property taxes. For all these reasons and more, I say no to the draft OCP. Let's put the language for the Bill 44 into the 2010 OCP and call it a day. We need to have public consultation when updating the zoning bylaw as well. There are far too many reasons to say no to this plan. I'm hoping that council respects their citizens who elected them and pay them to hear and understand that this draft is not the right approach. 6 letters of approval hardly represent the rest of us.
We're at
working-
time, Ms. Lures. I've
Thank
given
you.
you an extra minute,
Thank
so
you.
it's the same as the.
So the info to the public was not thorough enough for anyone to make a learned decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarity for members of the public, we're not discussing the draft OCP tonight. All that is being presented to council is the what we heard report. There will be another opportunity with a public hearing for the OCP should council move in that direction. Next speaker, please.
I'm Susan. I live in Sooke. In reading over the What We Learned report, I was gratified to see that the majority of Sooke citizens seem to support the new OCP, particularly its focus on environmental protection and the preservation of Sooke's natural assets. I just want to note that, of course, the online survey most recently put out was only one item in a fairly robust engagement process, and a further engagement process that's been going on for several years has resulted in thousands of responses. I was distressed, though, that some in the community are still lobbying to remove any reference to climate change or measures to increase Sooke's resilience in the face of climate change. Climate change is not a matter of opinion. I haven't read the feedback in detail yet, but the Sooke builders express a desire to eliminate DPA 1, which is the energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emissions, reasoning that it controls the same thing that are controlled by the building code. This isn't strictly true, and it's beside the point. DPAs are required by the province, and their role is to provide high-level guidance, not to duplicate permitting processes. DPA 1 the purpose of DTA 1 is to address the climate emergency head on and make meaningful strides towards the district's net zero emissions targets, which are mandated by the province, by the way. DPA 1 applies throughout Sooke to multifamily residential buildings of 5 or more units. So by definition, these are larger developments. Not only are such reductions mandated by the province, but they'll also contribute to overall improvement in the community over time by setting the intention that Sooke will start building for sustainability with low carbon, water smart buildings, resilient in the face of climate change. We are not only reducing emissions, we're charting a course for safer, cleaner, healthier homes and communities. Who wouldn't want that? Again, I reiterate my support, and I feel it's important to remind council that they were elected to serve the entire community as a whole and not only selected interests.
Thank you. Any other speakers tonight? This is the only speaking opportunity in tonight's agenda.
My name's Helen Ritz. I live in Sooke, BC. That's a hard act to follow, Susan. But I really just wanted to talk about the OCP for a second, and just a reminder to everyone, including council, that this has been going on for 5 years. We started in 2020, and there are thousands of people that have weighed in on it. It's been a fairly democratic process. I'm grateful that you gave the community another chance in September to feed in to it. And I thought that the staff did an excellent job of reaching out to the Builders Association and making some really kind of fair adjustments. And there have been adjustments all the way along for different groups. So again, what Susan said, it's a document for everyone. I hope you will accept this report, and I hope we will move forward to public hearing where we'll all have a chance to speak again. And I really look forward to it eventually being passed. Yeah, so thank you for your time and effort towards that. And just a quick note on item 13.3, meeting times, moving from 6 to 7 p.m., a little discussion. When it first moved to 6 p.m., I was a bit hesitant. And of course, I had to rush through dinner tonight to get here. But actually, as someone who's been attending meetings for quite a few years. I quite like the new change. I say we because in the audience sometimes, but I've gotten home as early as 8:30 p.m. I really like the consent agenda too. It kind of speeding things along. So, and if I had to guess, there's probably been more people attending since we changed to 6 p.m. That'd be just my opinion, but it certainly hasn't stopped people from attending tonight. So I kind of like the earlier time, and if it ever came to vote, I would give it a thumbs up. Thanks.
Thank you. Other speakers tonight? Can I wait for first-time speakers, please? Okay, thank you. Any first-time speakers? First time? Okay. Oh, wait, there's someone in the back. Sorry, I haven't forgotten you though.
Is that better? Your worship, council, staff and citizens, I'm here representing my family who has owned property in Sooke since 1970. I'm speaking to the OCP and what we learned. I've learned that not much has changed with respect to budgeting. I've learned that over the last 4 years, mayor and council have instituted over a 40% tax increase. And none of the policies equated in this OCP have ever been budgeted for. That was 3 references in the last land use committee meeting. And I would doubt very much that anybody in this room would buy a house or buy a car without at least an approximate cost, especially in these hard times. My family is against the current structure of the OCP because the vision is incorrect. The vision was made by Urban Planning Institute that really didn't have Sooke's heart in the right place, in my opinion. We've gone down a road, we've spent a bunch of time, people have put their valuable time and efforts into an OCP that, in my opinion, is unaffordable to our district. What we also learned in the last little while is that the development permit areas will affect residential housing close to streams, close to the waterfront. And in fact, I question what was said to the land use committee, in that I know of many occurrences where fines can be $200 a day, prosecution under the Offense Act with potential penalties of up to $50K, and or legal injunctions to stop work or reverse the unauthorized work that's taken place. There's been 3 recommendations in letter form to this type of work: immediately cease work, engage a QEP, submit the QEP report to the district planning department. And again, these costs weren't implemented, these structures weren't implemented in what we learned or what people contributed to the OCP. They didn't think their residential properties would be affected. In fact, this new OCP would make them legal non-conforming. And the costs, what I'm speaking to here, was brambles and bushes, such as what the planner did mention, that wouldn't be affected. I can tell you very clearly, and I'd show you documents if you want to see them, that planning department has issued orders respective of this for blackberries. So I just caution council. I know you have a very tough job. I don't envy it. I've sat in a council position, a mayor's position. I don't envy your job. And I just respect the fact that we have some work to do. Let's give us the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, another first-time speaker. Come ahead.
It's on. Is this on? My name's Tracy Clark. I'm a homeowner here in Sooke, and I just wanted to say a few things about the OCP as well. I have submitted my written comments to council and staff. I just want to say that I think in its current format, the OCP is too onerous for the average citizen to understand in its entirety and potential complexity and potential cost. It's comprised of numerous possible future bylaws, which may infringe on the freedom, or rights of tax-paying citizens. And before any further tax dollar outlays should be individually approved based on identified need, merit, and return on investment for for citizens and for the community as a whole. I think it should be presented in a clear, straightforward, fact-based format and exclude any, I would say, ideological leanings. There are people who have different views on whether there is a climate crisis, on whether equity should be included in the responsibility and roles of a municipal government. And yeah, basically, that's it. I think it needs to be a practical document that does address the needs of the community infrastructure, taxes, safety, and not be over-infused with ideology that could potentially divide more than it could unite the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other first-time speakers? Anyone for a first time? Okay, I'll welcome back our second-time speaker. Did you still wish to speak? Okay.
Thank you very much, Veronica Pemberton Billings, Sooke. And I did want to bring up something I brought up at the open house that didn't make it into the what we learned, and I think it's important. But first I will say, Susan and I don't agree on much, but we do agree that it should reflect the whole community of Sooke. So on that, we're in complete agreement. And I think council, and I do appreciate you're trying to find the path to that. So, but what I brought up under the climate issue, first of all, the International Panel on Climate Change does not say, and has never said, there's a climate emergency. There are climate issues. Climate change is a real thing that's happening, but it's manageable. Politicians have said it's an emergency to get us to sign on to expensive policies. So I will clarify that. On page 43 of the OCP, it says, what is net zero? And here I have a definition. Net zero is the target of completely negating the amount of greenhouse gases, GHGs, produced by activity by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and absorbing remaining greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere in oceans, forests, soils, and other carbon sinks. That is the definition of net zero. Nowhere have we actually seen a figure for what Sooke's carbon emissions are and the percentage of it. But I do have another definition, another pie chart on page 42. And it outlines the percent of our GHGs and all of that. But it says here, I've got a little note. Figure 4 outlines Sooke's greenhouse gas emissions profile for 2023. However, it should be noted that this figure does not include emissions sequestered by various land use types. So our definition of what net zero is, what we're trying to achieve, right there says it must include sequestered greenhouse gas emissions. Anything we're dealing with on the pie chart does not include that. And I assert that if it were
Thank you, Ms.
included,
Pemberton. We're
I'm
at-
going to just say if it were included, we would be net negative because Sooke is one big sequestration.
Okay, thank you. Are there any
Oh,
other
and I would like
speakers
it
to-
corrected. I would like that corrected, that we've got, that those two definitions match.
Okay, we
can't go
note
forward.
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Other speakers this evening? Before I close off the public comment period? Okay, Ms. Lures?
Ellen Lures on page 8, I guess it is. A public question and comment period. I've talked to this many times before. And now we're down to one member spoke to item 7.2, whatever that meant. And before we've had public comments, a public member spoke. I think we need to be more diligent in what the public was speaking about. What were they speaking about? About a light bulb? I mean, when someone's going through this document in the future, what was the public comment? What was the public concerned about? What were the concerns? We don't know, because who's going to look up what 7.2 was, for instance? And in the past, it's been worse. Well, I don't know if it's worse or not, but really the public comment, that should be what the public was speaking about? Were they speaking like for the OCP or against the OCP, for instance? That kind of comment should be included, because in the future, looking through, even for gathering information, it's not, you can't use that because there's no information there. So if that could be recorded properly, actually the municipal act states that the minutes need to be accurate and describing what happened at a municipal meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from anyone in the gallery tonight? This is the only time for public commentary, so. Okay, we will move on then. So council, I'll draw. Okay,
Really quickly, I'm still.
sorry, can you reintroduce yourself? We have folks viewing online as well.
I was about to.
Okay.
I just said really quickly, I'm still Susan and I still live in Sooke. Just to answer that, back in 2020, Sooke's carbon emissions annually were 48,000 tons. That's every year. And we haven't been reducing emissions for the last 5 years, so we can assume that they're closer to maybe 51 or 52,000 tons. So I think that's important to recognize. And I think it's also important to think about how climate issues are not matters of ideology, they're matters of science.
Okay, thank you. To the gentleman that's standing, are you coming to speak at the microphone? No, he's exiting. Okay. So council, I'll turn your attention to item 7, please. This is our consent agenda first off, and that is that the following items on the consent agenda be adopted by consent. 7.2 correspondence, 7.3 report of the chief administrative officer, 7.4 2350 Sun River Way development permit, 7.5 6660 Sooke Road development permit, 7.6 official community plan bylaw number 800 what we learned report, 7.7 supplemental items to the official community plan bylaw number 800 what we learned report. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Councillor, did either of you wish to speak as the mover and the seconder and the consent? No. So I'll go to Councillor Bateman, then Pearson, then Haldane.
Yeah, I'd like to remove several items here. Number 1A, Broom Hill Mountain Development Application.
So are you in the correspondence?
I am in the correspondence,
Okay.
7.2. Also, item 5, District of Saanich, letter of motion regarding Bill 44 impacts. And also item 15, park use permit fees for free events. That'd be for the next agenda.
Okay, sorry. So that was 1A, 5, and 15?
Yes.
3 items. So those correspondence will move to the next agenda. Okay, that's good. Councillor Pearson?
Yes, I'd like to remove 6.3, the official community plan bylaw, what we learned report.
Isn't it 7.6?
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm looking at 6.3. Never, that's the land use, sorry. 7.6, yes.
7.6, okay. That'll fall into the agenda and be under item 14.
Correct.
Councillor Haldane?
Yes, and I'd like to remove 7.7.
7.7. Okay, that'll fall under item 14. All remaining items will be received accordingly. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor then? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So that moves us right into item 8.1, which is our report section. And 8.1 is 6679 Throop Road dedication requirement, zoning amendment bylaw number 927. My understanding is this is we have already discussed this, but it's a covenant that needs to be registered as well. So to our staff, I'll read this out. You require both of these sections to be read into the record again for clarity.
That's correct.
Okay. So that is that council require the owner of Lot A, Section 72, Sooke District Plan EPP 135-661, 6579 Throop Road to register a Section 219 covenant in favor of the district that secures future highway dedication along the Throop Road frontage sufficient to achieve a 20-meter wide arterial cross-section in accordance with the district subdivision and development standards bylaw number 925, and that registration of the covenant be completed prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 927, 600-12, 2025 is shown in attachment 1. It's moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions, Councillor Pearson?
No.
Comments? Nope. St. Pierre? Nope. Anything from anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next is our bylaw section under 9.1, which is traffic and highway regulation amendment bylaw. So that is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as traffic and highway regulation amendment bylaw number 931 67-07 2025. It's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by St. Pierre. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman. Any comments?
Well, I think this amendment bylaw brings further clarity to a bylaw that was passed back in 2002. It does make clear that we homeowners are responsible for the culverts under our driveways, not for the culverts under municipal roads, but on our properties. My one comment here, or criticism, is that we don't have a redlined version of the previous or the current bylaw by which to compare. And I always find that particularly useful. So perhaps in future staff reports, we can see redlined versions. Otherwise, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I neglected to ask staff if they had any comment on this report before I went into the motions. So perhaps I'll turn to you next, Councillor St. Pierre, but I'll invite staff to comment first. Sorry, I'm going to staff first, then I'll come to you.
Perfect.
The amendment proposed just clarifies the driveways as the councillor had mentioned. And then one of the things was that it says snow removal on footpaths, and there is no description for a footpath. Meanwhile, we do have multiple paved multi-use paths, so it's just clarifying that it's sidewalks and multi-use paths in front of your property. And with the culverts also, so we still want people to come and get the permit to take it out. So we can make sure that the culvert's sized appropriately and stuff, but we're not going to recharge fees to redo a culvert on somebody's driveway. So that's one of the things in there. And then the final amendment was no fees if a property is developing through a design drawing assessment, because when you take out a highway use permit, there's fees applied. And when you do a design drawing assessment, there's fees applied. So we can't do both. So if we're doing a design assessment, then there's no fees under the highway use, but we'll still require the permit because we still need insurance and approved drawings and all of that.
Okay, Councillor, thank you. Councillor St. Pierre is next.
I was mostly just had a question for staff. Is that possible? Okay. I was curious as to whether or not this particular bylaw affects exactly how much snow removal a potential resident would have to make in terms of multi-use path. Do they have sole responsibility for snow removal and ice removal along all sidewalks adjoining their property? Is that the idea?
Through the mayor, adjacent to your property. So any sidewalk fronting your property. If you're on a corner lot and there's sidewalk on both sides, it would be both frontages.
Okay, so let me just, for example, what if someone had a very large property, say a farm property that had two roads going through it, perhaps with a T, and represented most of Phillips Road? Would they be responsible for snow removal as removal on all those sidewalks? Just as a for example.
Yes.
Good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Haldane?
Yes, I like the bylaw. I like that we're coming up with solutions to some of the issues that go on. There was a council meeting a couple of years ago that talked about frontages and boulevards where we were going to allow rock, we were going to allow gardens, we were going to allow shrubbery plants. And it was passed unanimously at a meeting that it would go forward to staff. Staff would bring back a report and it would be implemented, because I remember bringing photos at the time, some 15 or 20 photos of even our own district properties that had plenty of boulevards that weren't necessarily lawn. And we'd talked about it during the meeting and stuff, and it seemed like a great thing. Well, again, that was a couple of years ago. We've never been given a report from staff. It's never come and it's never been added to this. So I'd like to know if that's still a possibility sometime in the future. It seems that when staff has things that they want to bring forward to council, it comes in a reasonable period of time. But when the public comes forward and asks for stuff to be changed and council even agrees to it, there's still nothing on record and nothing forthcoming. So if that could be maybe added through the chair to.
That could be something we can follow up on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you. Other comments from members or questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
Yep. Thank you for the report and the bylaw. My question comes down on the, through the chair to staff. If a culvert's failing under someone's driveway and it starts causing road damage, who's on the hook to get the road repaired?
Through the mayor. Driveway culverts, in practice, it has been the property owner's responsibility because it only exists for that access. So staff assists as much as possible, but we'll take care of cross culverts on the road, but not to the side of the road. If it's affecting the road, we'll make sure the road's safe, but we won't repair the culvert.
Yeah, my question's more along the line is that all of a sudden the culvert gets plugged up and it's been, and it washes out half of the road. Is the property owner responsible for the repair to the road?
That's something I would have to look into and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from members of council? So I'll call the question then. All in favor, please. That's carried unanimously, none opposed. Okay, so we're moving into item 10, which is motions for which notice has been given. So the first one is 10.1. This is from Councillor Haldane, that council directs staff to prepare a report summarizing the conceptual plans for the Throop Road connector prepared by civil engineers in 2004 and in 2025. So that's been submitted by Councillor Haldane at a previous meeting, so it's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Thank you. Councillor Haldane, please go ahead.
Well, I think the big issue I've been having, because it's been in the news and we've been talking about it for some time, is that there's a $50 million borrowing bylaw coming forward. And my motion is for information designed to get people to understand how much it's going to cost to build this road, to understand how we're going to get there. And to give you an example, with the $50 million and of course the line at the bottom that's always on there that says council must agree to all cost overruns. Example is funding for the Keating Road overpass in Saanich. And I talked to UBCM, to one of the guys from Municipal Finance Authority, and he was telling me how Central Saanich had borrowed $65 million to build that overpass. They're into it for over 140 million and they still haven't finished it yet. So we're going to be in the same situation with stuff that we borrow. And that's why that line on the bottom is a real fine little line that says council must agree to all cost overruns. Well, there should be a limit that you agree to, maybe 10% overruns or something like that. But most importantly, we don't even identify this road in our OCP with land designations on the road that are commercial, multifamily. There's nothing to get developing groups to pay for the sidewalks, the boulevards, the streetlights. And that kind of puts me in a position where I can't agree even with the concept of it, because I don't believe taxpayers are in a position right now to cover 50 million. More likely it's going to be 100 million. So as Mr. Saunders has said earlier, you know, we've got 40% tax increases in the last few years. How many more tax increases could we really afford to have? I mean, our town is full of lots of seniors who are on fixed incomes, lots of young people trying to get into the system and buy houses. So this report that I'm asking for is more for information to find out how we're going to get there. And more importantly, maybe there's some ways of lowering the cost of this whole project by putting a lot of the cost of the road building on the back of development or development groups. So I'm hoping the information comes sooner than later. There was a few more motions that I put forward for information towards that, but I realize that some of it's proprietary or in camera and we can't bring them at this time. But I'd like to see the OCP at least recognize with some land designation for, like I say, multifamily or commercial or something, so that people who own those properties can either build on them, sell them, but more importantly, complete portions of the road so taxpayers don't have to pay for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you. And I support that. I support the motion because I think that what this does is it gets a broader conversation going with the public so that people start understanding the components of what it takes to build this connector. There's a lot of moving pieces in this, and you know, the $50 million price tag that has been identified is going to be a significant borrowing. And if we're going to have a chance of alleviating traffic, we have to consider not only the report, but we have to consider options that could potentially flow out of this report. You know, you've heard me say a couple of times over the last year, we have an interim and an ultimate road build out, and maybe that's the way that we can do that. But we have about 1 year right from today to our next election, and we're hoping that this question, all of us are hoping that this question is on our election. And it's a big, huge ask for the people in Sooke, $50 million and 50 million plus. So some risks. So I support getting a report so that the public gets to understand what it is that we're looking at and what we're dealing with. This is a big deal for Sooke. This is the biggest single project in the history of Sooke. Thank you.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I understand the concerns. I mean, we all have concerns, but I guess when we keep throwing around this $50 million borrowing bylaw, we have not got a borrowing bylaw as yet. What we're doing, my understanding, and staff can correct me or the mayor can correct me, is that we have a number of grants out there. We're figuring that project could cost $50 million, but it may not be $50 million that we have to borrow for. So I certainly would like those grants, I believe, are coming in by the end of the year. We'll know yes or no. And quite frankly, I think $50 million, if we had to borrow, that would be, I don't think the public would go for it. And I certainly don't have a problem with that. But I want to caution people when they throw $50 million that we're going for a borrowing referendum. There's nothing that we have said that we're going for a borrowing referendum for $50 million. And there's nothing to say that this council would support going to the public to borrow $50 million. What we're saying is the project, as it's laid out, and I've seen the conceptual drawings, would cost $50 million. That's why we're going out for the grants, the federal grant and the provincial grant. So I just want to, I don't mind getting some plans and having a look at options. Certainly, we should all be doing that. I'm not so sure if we should be waiting until we see what we get the grants, but you know, to say we're going for $50 million, I'm sorry, that just throws something out there. We may, and the public could turn it down, but the bottom line is what I heard from people when the Charters Road was closed is get on with it. We're tired of this. Our traffic is almost maxed out now, and that was identified as a part that would alleviate a lot of the traffic concerns. So we're doing that, and we're doing it in a diligent manner. We're not saying we're going to borrow $50 million. We're looking at all aspects of it. So I'm okay with looking at you know, some alternatives. We should be doing that anyways. But as long as, you know, just you know, cool it down a bit until we know exactly what we're dealing with. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I have concerns over the report in terms of summarizing conceptual plans, because I don't think that a summary of the conceptual plans would really be useful either to ourselves or to the public. I think what we really need to know is more what Councillor Haldane was speaking to, which is basically how do we pay for it? So for example, would it be useful to rezone certain areas? I suspect it would be, but that's not part of conceptual plans. That's actually a planning exercise and looking at different funding models in terms of actually paying for the road. I would be interested in seeing that sort of work. The conceptual plans I would love to see because I'd like to see them, but that's more curiosity than actually anything else. I think what the public really wants to know at this point is, first, how are we going to actually solve the problems on Route 14? And second, how are we not going to have our taxes tripled or quadrupled in doing so? I think those are the questions that we should be answering. So if this motion was to say something more along those lines, I would fully support it, because I think that we do need a great deal more clarity in terms of what's going to be happening with this particular road that by all accounts we desperately need. If we hadn't actually been building out so much, if we didn't have so many additional homes, we might not. If it was the Sooke 10, 20 years ago, we'd be okay. But as it is, we have more and more homes. We have many more being built. We have more and more cars. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. My understanding is that the road and the concepts for through connector as it stands take into account traffic surveys, future traffic needs based on the build out of our existing homes and homes that are zoned. It's not necessarily even what's going on right now, but it's a complicated situation where it looks into the future in terms of what we will definitely need. We could put on a patch now and they need another for 20 million and they need a $50 million patch 10 years from now. And we want to avoid that at all cost. So I think that a report of this sort needs to really look at why are we doing it this way? Why is it important this way? The other thing that I understand and that has not been summed up in such a report is we have interlocking grants that one depends on, for example, putting in active transportation components. Another one needs this and needs that. So I think that those pieces of information should be included in that sort of report. But again, I don't see that as conceptual plans. For me, conceptual plans is what's the road going to look like and where's it going? And that's important, but I don't think what we're talking about.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, thanks everyone for the comments. Speaking directly to the motion in front of us, I will note I'm absolutely in favor of that. More information, the better. I'm really looking forward to this information page that will be live by Halloween night, I think. Seems appropriate somehow. And yeah, so in terms of some of the comment, I think that $50 million number is really interesting, and the specter of cost overruns is terrifying. I think one of the upsides is that Mr. Carter has prepared his budget of $49.791 thousand dollars, 49 million and 49.8 million. Okay, and that includes a 20% contingency fund. So that's $10 million of contingency. We've got grant applications in for the amount of 17 million, which including contingency would put the district contribution at 32 million. And of course, those grant applications we will not be hearing about till late this year or next year. So by the time that referendum, if indeed we go ahead with it, we will know the book cost of this project, pending any overruns. So yes, to the motion at hand, I absolutely support additional material going on to that information page. As I said to Mr. Carter several times, we need the data as citizens. We need to have as much data in front of us as possible. And that includes, as Councillor St. Pierre said, the traffic impact studies. Is this connector road going to be a true game changer for traffic on 14? So we need to see the evidence. And I think that will make for a extremely lively lead up to the referendum and a fair and equitable vote.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to you in a moment, Councillor Haldane. Question to staff. Do we have a meeting date of when the report for the connector is coming before council?
Through your worship, I believe right now it's tentatively scheduled for the end of November council meeting for the Throop connector report.
End of November?
Yeah, the 20 in camera for the November 24th.
Is there, but like for a public facing report would be November 24th?
Yeah, we could schedule to do a public facing report at that meeting as well.
Okay, so that'll be on November the 24th. Because I'm looking this here is directing staff to provide a report. However, if there's a report being developed, then I would suggest that one report that covers off everything would make the most sense. So we're hearing November the 24th would be that report. In terms of this, I think it would be helpful in the preamble of the report just to include some historical context. I'm not sure if a full concept plan was developed back in 2004. It predates me. However, I'm aware that we did not, as a district, have a transportation master plan of any sort in place at the time. The first one was adopted maybe in 2009. If I think back to then, there was no roundabout. Maybe the Phillips and Sooke light was installed at that time. So, and there has been changes to where the connector road would have gone, but there's likely something within the district, but I think it would be helpful just to have that as a preamble, because we are aware that this did go through a referendum process then. So what was it then? And it would be helpful to note now. The grants that we've applied for may be known later this year or in the early next year. But the direction from council was, given the first grant opportunity coming, and our discussion around this is there was a motion by council earlier this year to staff to have this ready for next year's election. So that is what staff is gearing up for. And then the reports are coming. So we'll wait for that. Is that satisfied? I'm just going to ask the notice person that this is coming. Sorry, counselor, I didn't mean person, but to the counselor that made this motion. We will see it in about 6 weeks. So, or were you anticipating a report sooner than that?
Well, if I would like the report to cover more ground than I guess even what I'm asking for here. So maybe it requires a second motion, but I did send in a bunch of other motions looking for more information. But again, I was told they're in camera. I mean, we were told at the last meeting when Mr. Carter was here that there was only one option. That was it. We weren't looking at alternative routes, options or whatever. So asking for this report to be able to look at the plans to see whether there is an interim option. So ultimate plan, absolutely. Everybody wants their kids to walk on sidewalks, but whether we can afford to do that, we still need to get traffic moving through the town.
Okay, so how about this? We'll receive the reports when that report is made. I'm just looking at timelines, so we're waiting about 6 weeks, the report will come. But certainly at that time, if you feel that there's anything that's missing, because what I hear is everyone here wants as much information as possible and to be able to present that to the public. So that would be a time for us to say, okay, what else do we need to progress this? And then once we receive the outcome of the grants, if we're not successful in any grant, that might change where council wants to go. But let's get the report, because right now I don't have anything to look at to tell you if it's going to be sufficient or if it's what you're looking for or what anyone here is looking for. So what I'm asking is that there is a report being drafted. We'll receive it at the end of November. So I'm comfortable passing this, provided it's not next meeting. Where's the report I asked for when we know it's being developed and it's coming our way?
Yeah, so included in that report, I was told by Mr. Carter at the time that he based his money, or 49 million, on a per meter cost based on Charters Road, sidewalks, improvements, the whole thing. Charters Road is significantly different, so that per meter cost I don't think is reliable. And then I was told through the chair to our CAO that there was a Class C engineered cost. So engineers look at the drawings, they make up a rough estimate based on how much work has to be and stuff what they have. So I would like the Class C, which is what I'd asked for in one of the other motions that I pushed. So if we can have some alternating reports on what costs are. I mean, the engineers are doing this stuff every day, working with companies and stuff. So they might be a little bit more reliable on the fact that we've got a huge bank on the side of Phillips Road that we don't have going down Charters Road. We have to get land off people. We have a whole bunch of stuff. So again, yeah, I'm looking for as much information we can get. If it takes 3 weeks, I have no issue with that, as long as there's information forthcoming, especially for
It's
time.
going to be a little longer because I heard the end of November. So we're
Yeah.
looking at 6 weeks. So let's receive that report at the time and then we can discuss if anything's missing. I just note that Councillor McMath has joined the meeting virtually. Councillor McMath, can you please test your microphone and your video so we can ensure that we're connected properly?
Hi.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bateman is next, or nope. Okay, was there anyone for a second time? Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
I'm anxious to hear this. And I heard, the $50 million, it wasn't our number, the $50 million. That was the price, $49.8 million. What I think I'm happy that we're getting a report And hopefully it comes with a timeline like this motion, that it actually truly comes in November, because again, that timeline is coming down. Is there other information at this time that we need, like Ministry of Highways? What is their plan for coming through Sooke? Like, is there an ongoing plan that we have?
They have no plan other than to do improvements at Idlemore.
Yeah. And this road, we're hoping for, this is going to solve a lot of problems. We're hoping that. I also heard at UBCM that the province is, $12 billion in a deficit position. I'm not hopeful for grants, hearing $12 billion, and, the federal government, I think they're just about as bad right now. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. But again, there's a lot of players that are playing into this. We're embarking on the biggest project in the history of Sooke, and we don't know what Department of Highways is doing. There's some critical information that has to come forward in that report. So
I think it's fair that we know what they're doing and that what they are doing is improvements at Idlemore, and that is all they are doing. So that is what they are doing. And yes, you are, although it's not a lot that they're doing, but that is what they're doing. And we know that. There are otherwise, other than maintenance, no other plans to do anything further with Highway 14. We heard that when their staff was present, and we've heard nothing since then from anyone. And then in addition to that is, yes, you are correct. We were hearing about cuts and scaling back, and that was presented to us both provincially and federally. And yet we know every local government Canada-wide is applying for infrastructure grants.
correct.
So that is our challenge, is there's limited funds and everyone applying because of the infrastructure challenges. However, right now, this is a motion to get a report. We know that there is a report coming. We don't have that report in front of us. And I think once we receive it, that would be a good time to say, okay, do we have enough? Like, what is our decision point? What more do we need? We may or may not know the outcome of the grant by the time this report comes, potentially not, in which case we'll look, it's carrying on. But we've told our staff that to gear up for the referendum, that's what we're doing. Ultimately, council still needs to make that decision on what the dollar value is and to receive approval on it, but we're not quite there yet. This is a step along the way. Counts, okay?
And I appreciate that your comments. It's just, there's a lot bothering me about some of the price tag here. Not some of the price tag, the big price tag, and a lot of information that we don't have from the Ministry of Highways, which is a critical link in our community, right through our town. Thank you.
What they have stated is they do not fund municipal roads. So this is not, and this will be a municipal road. That's why we're applying for the grant. And other grants are active transportation grants, which means sidewalks, bike lanes, that sort of thing, not car travel lanes.
Yeah. Thank you. And I appreciate all of the comments. Councillor Beddoes mentioned somewhere along the way about Highway 14, putting a right-hand turn lane. Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. But again, this seems to go into these vacuums, and we don't hear things from the Department of Highways. They should have an overarching plan of what they're doing through Sooke. Their highway goes right through here, and we should be part of that discussion. Not, oh, we're going to fix Idlemore Road and then nothing. But anyway, thank you.
We should, but that is our ongoing relationship with the ministry. Councillor Bateman, then Beddoes.
Yeah, so just following up on your points there about the ministry, that we get so much content in these meetings, but I seem to recall not so long ago hearing that the district and MOTT are at 75% design status with the section from the bridge right up to Church. These are the right turn lanes we're talking about. And also in terms of designing the sidewalks out to Whiff and Spit. So through you to Ms. Matson, maybe she can give us an update on what's going, how the relationship with Moti under the
I think like we're
MOU.
on a motion with a report to come.
All right,
So
we'll
I
do
think
that
it's
another
more
night.
to share with staff that we would like, obviously you see that we're looking for information. It would be helpful to include a status update on everything we know about Highway 14 when that report comes forward, rather than asking staff right now to answer when clearly this motion is about directing staff to bring a report this is our opportunity to share with staff what we would like to see in said report at the end of November. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I could talk about the third lane going up, but that's still in the being drawn out by our staff is being paid by MOTT to draw that out, and it's same with the right turn lane from the bridge up to Sun River.
I don't know that we're receiving any funding, only that we're working with them to do it.
I believe, I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, that MOTT supplied some money for us to draw that up. We could check with staff on that in a second. But I guess just to narrow in on this, I'm having a little trouble passing a motion to bring a report that's coming anyways. I mean, it's been a good discussion because I believe staff is writing notes and listening to us, and we'll have a great deal more information. But I just don't see the point of passing this one if we're getting the report on the 24th. If we pass this one, it can't come before the 24th anyways, giving enough time to do the research, which they're doing anyways. So I'm just questioning why we would even pass this when, Councillor Haldane, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it, but then I find out it's coming anyways. I mean, what's the point? I mean, there's nothing in here that is asking anything other than some conceptual plans, which were coming on November 24th. So, I mean, it's just a procedural thing. I mean, I guess we could pass it, but we're coming anyways.
Well,
It's not hurts.
the report is coming. It's noted here that we discussed it. If anything, it'll capture that in the minutes, and it's an opportunity for council to share what they're looking for in the report. I don't see it either way. It's fine as long as, and the councillor knows that the report won't be sooner than the 29th or the end of November because it's being developed. Councillor St. Pierre, then I'll call the question.
I was just wondering if it makes sense to table the motion till after the other report comes in, and then Councillor Haldane has the benefit if it's his motion, and after we've looked at it, it's his motion is moving forward with whatever additional information we want.
That would be, so if you wish to postpone it, that would be your call to discuss that.
Okay, then I wish to table the motion till after that report.
Tabling is within a meeting, postpone would be a future meeting
That
and date and
postpone.
time. So Councillor St. Pierre is making a motion to postpone a decision until such time that this report comes to council. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, seconded now on postponing. Go ahead.
As noted, we have a report coming in. Nothing will come in before then regardless, and at that point we'll have more information. This allows Councillor Haldane to basically hang on to the motion, and we can make amendments as needed once the motion hits the floor again at that point, based on the report, which we know we need. It just seems to make sense. As noted by Councillor Beddoes, passing it right now doesn't actually, it's a waste of our time in some ways, and it doesn't actually do anything. So this actually makes it useful.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I think I basically said it. I mean, I understand what's being asked here, and I think all the council wants as much information as we can. I don't think this motion hurries things up or brings any more light to it. We will get this report, and then I'm sure all of us will have questions on what flows out of that report, and including the public. So I just see that postponing this until that time would be fine. It gives Councillor Haldane the chance to open it up again if he needs to. But the report's coming, and I think staff, listening to the typing over there, that they're taking these points into consideration. So.
Anyone else on postponing? Councillor Bateman?
I'm happy either way. I think the postponement does make sense. Staff is hearing us right now. We need as much information as possible and these conceptual plans to really understand what was proposed in 2004, because it's not the through road connector. In fact, it's something from Gatewood, I believe. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to get that data. And again, it's part of the big picture package that we need. But I agree we can postpone this until we see the fruits of their labors.
Okay, for myself, I'd rather just not postpone this. Councillor Haldane at the time, or any member of council, should they feel information is missing, will have an opportunity to make other motions at that time. This here is simply just asking staff to provide as much historical context, even if it's not the same, so that the community and all of council is up to date. Postponing this might then tell staff, don't do that work, in which case the report will be incomplete at that time. We've discussed the matter. I would suggest and it also just adds, okay, now we need to deal with a postponement. We need to make amendments, unnecessary bureaucracy to another important meeting item. And sooner just clear this out of the way, get the report. Staff are hearing all of this, what we're asking for, and we'll leave it at that. So I'm not postponing this. Let's just leave it as is and get the historical data. Anyone else on postponing? I'll call the question on postponing. All those in favor, please. Opposed? That's Councillor Haldane, Pearson, Bateman, and McMath. You're opposed, I believe. Myself. That fails. So now on the main motion, please. I'm going to call that question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 10.2. This is the Sooke Health Summit in the second quarter of 2026. Councillor Bateman provided this at the previous meeting. Whereas the 2016 Sooke Region Health Summit provided an effective means for community discussion in the areas of local medical services and infrastructure, food accessibility, special populations, and social and physical activities. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to include funding in the amount of $10,000 in the 2026 provisional budget, along with related in-kind staff support in the service plan to enable a second Sooke Region Health Summit in the second quarter of 2026 in collaboration with the Sooke Region's Community Health Network. So Councillor Bateman moved that. It's seconded by Councillor Pearson. So to motivate, go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so as usual, I've put a wordy motion forward here that could have probably been edited, but nonetheless, there it is. I'm Sooke's council appointee to the Sooke Region Community Health Network's Age-Friendly Committee. And I've been in that role since 2019. And we've often discussed the Sooke Region Health Summit held back in 2016. It was identified a second one of these health summits was identified in the Search and Strategic Plan in 2022. And this last year, we've been again discussing the need to go back and look at the results of the health summit, which was divided into 4 key sections: healthy food accessibility, special populations, which are youth, seniors, and persons with disabilities, medical services and infrastructure, and social and physical activities available within the district of Sooke. So there were successes and gaps and desires expressed back in 2016. A second health summit next spring would be an opportunity to look at what gaps remain and what steps that have been achieved over time. Progress on the health center, for example, development of the new library, substantial work and community investment into the gathering place, new recreational facilities and trails, all ages and abilities transportation master plan, and the district's first accessibility plan. These are all things that have happened in the last decade, but there are significant gaps remaining. In fact, getting that health center built and the gathering place, getting it over the finish line. I think it would be a really, I think, and the age-friendly committee, more to the point, thinks that doing this would be a very valuable exercise and undertaking. You know, the idea would be we'd have a keynote speaker, then we'd break into breakout groups to look at each of those 4 project areas. We'd also like to update the Sooke Age-Friendly Action Plan, which was released in 2015, and it too has a series of gaps that the community identified back then, and it's important, I think, to do a check-in a decade later. It's very worth noting that an independent group convened by the Saunders Family Foundation has been independently developing a Sooke resilience plan that is very much rooted in the community healthcare system support playbook and toolkit. I was at a meeting with community stakeholders, a working group meeting in the spring, and I would certainly hope that its team will participate in the summit and that its work can be integrated within the larger ambitions of the plan. So that's my pitch, and I will shut up.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, I think Councillor Bateman summed it up well. We live in a community where our population is aging. And services. Yeah. Sorry, was looking any direction. Did look back at myself. But it's critical to take a barometer or a litmus test of where you're at today, where we were in the past, and see if we're making progress. And it sounds like you identified a keynote speaker in your preamble there. Yes, it sounded like a little hint anyways. But we had the opportunity at UBCM to meet with Mr. Levitt, who is the seniors advocate for the province, and who is duly impressed with a lot of the activities that are going on in Sooke. So it's not only an opportunity to review where we're at or what we need to do, but what we already have accomplished. There's some celebration in there as a community, because I think we do a lot of things, and a health summit is a chance to point some of our successes and look at those gaps for our strategic plan going forward. So I will be supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
I will also support the motion for all the good reasons given. I was curious as to whether or not in the past there was any sort of report that came to council or was put out to the community. I believe it must have been, yes?
Yes, there was a report that was developed and brought forward to council.
Okay, and I'm sure that council and staff were able to use that report. So this seems like money well spent for sure, and for all sorts of reasons.
The report helped attain a lot of the planning that began underway to lead us towards the proposed health center. It also highlighted other work and areas that we needed to focus on, particularly amongst children and youth. The opioid crisis has widened and deepened significantly since that time. But notes in terms of celebratory ones is Searchin had been successful attaining additional grant support to build out the supporting seniors at home and many other local organizations in that way through either United Way, I believe, and maybe others to support seniors living alone. So there's a lot in there, but it's aging now because it was in 2016. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I too will support this motion. You know, it be 2026, it'll be 10 years. And I think, you know, I don't want to get into the OCP, but we review our plans every once in a while, and 10 years seems like a good time to do it. The community has grown, you know, and yes, we are all aging, of course. So I think $10,000, I know it's tax money, is modest for just to go over some of the things that have changed dramatically in this community. So yeah, I'll be supporting this 100%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll see anything else. I'd like to call the question then. Councillor Bateman, are you speaking for a second time?
Yeah, I would like to just quickly note that the ask here is for 10,000 and related in-kind staff support. Looking over at our communications coordinator over there, because Searchin is, you know, it's running on fumes like everyone else, and they'll need support to make this happen.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All those, oh, sorry, Councillor McMath has her hand up. So is that to speak, Councillor McMath?
Yes, please.
Head, please.
That $10,000, like, I think the idea is great. With things being so expensive, and we're trying to watch our nickel and diming here, and with there not being like a clear allocation on the amount of staff support required, what exactly is it that taxpayers are getting for $10,000?
Well, yeah, so we're getting an update of the findings of the Sooke Health Summit from 2016. The 10,000 will be a maximum amount, and as always with these kind of situations, any unspent funding. We're going to rent EMCS, and we're going to provide some food and drink. And we're going to have a honorarium for a keynote speaker. And that's about the sum of it. But I put down $10,000 as a recommended amount coming out of the Age-Friendly Committee as a working feasible budget. We also want to advertise the thing, of course, and do that good marketing work, which might require an ad in the News Mirror, of course, and that's now we're looking at $1,500 for a full page, et cetera. So I think 10,000 is reasonable, and thank you for the question.
And then just a follow-up to that, once that event has concluded, will you be sending a follow-up report on expenditures?
The plan, oh, absolutely. You'll get a budget report back along with the formal report emerging out of the summit. Ideally, we will be identifying, as was done back in 2016, for core group leaders who would take responsibility for the findings of their particular group and report back to us.
And then last one, just how much staff time are you looking to have the district commit?
Don't know. I can't answer that. I think the next step in this process will be to form a working group to move us towards spring of 2026, and Christina Moog, I don't know. As I age, it's getting, names are giving me trouble.
So the intention here is, so back when it was hosted in 2016, it was about $6,000. There was a report with actuals, budget and actuals provided. A lot of it went to cover the cost of the venue, advertising, materials, signage, that sort of thing, and a small honorarium for the speaker at that time, who was Dr. Richard Stanwyck. And then all the others were local volunteers and organizers, but there was also a need for, I think, for some refreshments to be present. It was a full day. But for accessibility, it'd be different. However, this still is just a provisional budget conversation. So when this actually comes to council as part of our budget deliberations early in the new year, more information will be known that Councillor Bateman will provide. If this doesn't pass tonight, then that discussion ends. But more will be known when we actually look at the budget in its entirety in early 2026.
Okay, and if staff doesn't have the capacity to support, will you still be able to create and host your event?
Pardon me, what was the question?
If staff does not have the capacity, because we have some pretty big ticket items coming down the pipe, if they do not have the capacity to support this, I'm just curious if they'll still be able to run the summit.
Likely go ahead. It's just sometimes it's not as robust as you would want it to be. So in this case, that'll be more information we'll achieve from staff later on.
So, yeah, I would just add that this is Sooke, right? We can pull things off when pinch comes to shove, and it's been done repeatedly over time here in Sooke, and I think we can pull off an event at EMCS that generates some useful content going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I just wanted to lay Councillor McMath's concerns. It was my concern as well, what exactly are the taxpayers getting out of it? But the refresh on the action plan that actually allows us to move forward on things like community health centers, in the same way that a housing needs report allows us to figure out where the gaps in terms of housing are. This type of current information allows us to go after funding, make appropriate plans, and generally multiplies itself out many times over in terms of savings to taxpayers. So that's where the value lies. It lies in potentially getting additional support and help that taxpayers won't then have to pay for.
Should also be noted that the last report also for interested volunteer groups that were organized wanting to do a specific project, that report gave them a specific project to focus and to work on. And that was where we had volunteer capacity in the community to mobilize on certain initiatives. So that would be an opportunity to showcase what efforts those groups have done over the last 10 years. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on this. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? None opposed. It's unanimous. There's none. Okay, move on to item 11. There's no new business. Number 12, we're entering into the notice of motion section. So these are motions that are provided tonight that will be received and debated at the next regular council meeting. The first one was provided by Councillor Haldane, and that is that council directs staff to prepare a report outlining the district's current approach to regulating storage containers, including temporary, permanent storage and commercial or public use, and provide options and implications for future regulation. The report is to include an assessment of legal, safety, and liability considerations, as well as a review of how the municipalities of Colwood, Langford, Highlands, and Machosen regulate shipping containers. So that'll come to the next meeting. 12.2, council remuneration bylaw review. This is provided by myself. That council directs staff to prepare a report on the current council remuneration and benefits bylaw number 845, 2022 for presentation at an upcoming committee of the whole meeting for review and discussion, and that the report include a summary of council remuneration history to the extent that information is available, along with any related council decisions that can be identified. And further, that council consider potential amendments to the remuneration structure to provide additional compensation for participation on District of Sooke committees and for serving as deputy mayor. And there's one missing. It was supposed to be provide additional compensation for councillors participating on District of Sooke committees. So that was what I was provided, but that's not. So I'd like to see that amended, please. So to provide additional compensation for councillors participating on District of Sooke committees and for serving as deputy mayor. Is that being captured? I don't see it on
Do you
the
mind
screen.
just repeating that last little bit to provide additional compensation to council members?
Additional compensation for councillors participating on District of Sooke committees. Councillors participate on council committees. That's fine. So that's just the amendment to the motion. Thank you. Okay, so that's 12.2. We'll move on to 12.3. South Island Prosperity Project. This is from Councillor Bateman. That council refer the South Island Prosperity Partnerships Project Report titled Igniting Momentum, Recommendations for Greater Victoria to Overcome Economic Stagnation and Achieve Our Potential, September 23, 2025, to the November 3rd, 2025 Community Economic Development Committee for review. 12.4 is from Councillor Bateman. That council refer the Sooke Program of the Arts Committee's 2022 Sooke Region Cultural Plan Review received for information by council at its regular meeting of July 11th, 2022 to the December 1st, 2025 Community Economic Development Committee for review. So those motions will all come to the next regular meeting. We'll move on into our correspondence section. The first one is from 13.1, letter from Jan Simpson, CUPW National President. The motion is that council receive the letter from Jan Simpson, CUPW National President, for information. So I will move that since I pulled it. Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. My motivation for pulling this was that I'm aware of changes to our local mail delivery service and that the current post that there's rotating or revolving strike shack action occurring, and that there is some changes coming down from the federal government in terms of how postal service will be changing or evolving. The letter writer asked for us to pass a resolution, and it's written in here, but for those sitting in the public, demand an immediate halt to service cuts, to look instead for ways to increase services and revenues in other area, and that no mandate review takes place until Canada Post returns to stabilize operations. Ask the government to commit to a full, transparent public process for the upcoming mandate review, involving input from all areas, and make a written or oral submission. At this point, I was just highlighting this as this is happening in our town at the particular moment. Councillor St. Pierre?
I was curious about if there was any intent to do anything with the content of the letter with the resolutions, that's all. Receive information, I'm fine. I was just curious if there was a next step to be contemplated or not.
I think the situation is evolving, so what that next step is, I'm not sure at this time. I was just
Agree
asked to
completely.
pull it, I pulled it, and here it is.
Agree complete. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anything from anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimous. The next one, need my glasses here, is 13.2. Hold on a second here. Oh, here we are. So this is wetland at Church and Rhodonite. So the first motion would be to receive the correspondence regarding the wetland at Church and Rhodonite for information by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Haldane. Now on the motion, please, go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, I pulled this one because I remain sensitive to the cautionary tale of Ellis Stream that we went through this time last year. And here is concerns from the public that this is a wetland. So I did some research. The district hired Curewood and Liddell to conduct a rainwater management plan back in January 2012. There is no formally identified wetland in this location. There is one nearby on the south side of Churchill Drive and another at the corner of Throop and Church. I was concerned perhaps that this wetland fed into Knott Brook. That's not the case, or Knott Pond, I should say. It's not the case. That begins in a pond behind homes on Townsend Road, and then feeds through various tributaries into the Strait of Juan de Fuca. It's currently seeded with grass that is now this property. I don't know what the plan is for the developer's plan for this particular property. It is zoned C1. And as the mayor states in her letter, there was a rezoning proposal. There was a public hearing back on November 14th, 2017. And within that report, it does discuss the nature of the property. It's topographically flat, covered in grasses, invasive blackberry and Scotch broom. A healthy stand of established fir trees were planted there as a Christmas tree farm in the 90s. And that it's cleared now, and we await to see what comes next. So all of that is germane to the fact that this should be just received for information.
Okay, thank you. The seconder was Councillor Haldane. Did you wish to speak to this?
No, it's a piece of pre-zone commercial and multifamily land. I wasn't quite sure why it was there, but I was willing to support Mr. Bateman. So.
Okay, thank you. I will call the question then. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next is 13.3, meeting times for council and time council meetings to receive for information by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Haldane. Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, we embarked sometime last year on changing the meeting times from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. I have heard from a few members of the public. I just thought it was time for us to revisit it, to see if it's working out. I'm retired, so I can get here at 6. I just want to make sure that the public has adequate access to us at 6 p.m. if there's been any changes. Or if there's any public opinion that would say that we should continue on or go back to 7. So that was it, like daylight savings time.
Councillor Haldane?
I would rather it be 7 o'clock because it's hard to get home, get ready, have something to eat before you come here, because these meetings seem to go till 11 and greater. So, but I'm one of 7 here, so pretty sure you retired guys who have more time than anybody on the planet can get here at 3 o'clock if you had to. So not a problem.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I think one of the reasons that the experiment was made was because people were actually, you know, towards 11 o'clock running out of brain cells to actually try and make some good decisions. And 6 to 10 is actually more conducive to better decision making, I think was the thought at the time. We do seem to have a fair number of people who can actually make it out by all accounts. I personally find myself, you know, flagging hard at 10:30, 11 o'clock, so I do appreciate the time as it stands. And I think good decisions is what we're here for, so.
Any comments from anyone else? Councillor Bateman, then Beddoes.
Yeah, so I looked back to the Council Procedure Amendment bylaw from May 13th, 2024, which is when we moved from 7 to 6. And there were a bunch of reasons related to this. One of the key ones was that, for example, tonight we have 8 staff members in the room with us. And starting at 6 ensures that we finish with most of them, apart from our CAO and corporate officer, by the time we move in camera. So I see that as a cost savings advantage for the district. And it's working out for me. I find during my weeks, I don't have a lot of spare time, actually. I am semi-retired, Herb, and Councillor Haldane, and there's certainly a shortage of free hours in the day. I don't find but I can manage to get here at 6 o'clock.
Councillor Beddoes and McMath.
Yeah, I'm retired. I don't have any trouble getting here at 6 or 7, but I do understand people. I mean, I've just dealt with the library and people rushing home in this traffic, and getting here for a 6 o'clock start could be quite difficult for a lot of people. I am also concerned about the brain cells at 11 o'clock, because a lot of times you go even past that. The only thing is, if we go to a 7 o'clock, then I'd like to go back to having the in cameras at 6. So we don't have an in camera every time, but you know, Councillor Haldane, who works, and Councillor McMath that works, I think St. Pierre works on a farm. So I really don't mind if it goes back to 7. Don't really have a problem with it.
Councillor McMath.
I would like for it to go back to 7. Typically I'll get off at 6 and that makes it impossible. That's why I'm zooming in later this evening. And with most people, I think it's 75% of this community commutes for work, and most people get off around 4 or 5 o'clock, which is Sooke's peak worst traffic time. So the 7 o'clock buffer, I think, would go a long way. I think when we first were doing this sort of test run, the logic was that staff wouldn't be staying as late, but we seem to continue to meet on until 11 o'clock at night, regardless. So the one thing that perhaps Councillor Pearson could add in his discussion, if he has a motion that he's looking to make, is maybe just a request from staff on the financial implications, or perhaps the financial differences with a 6 o'clock start versus a 7 o'clock start, and if there have been any, because I seem to remember that was supposed to be the primary benefit of switching the time.
Okay, thank you. So right now we're just receiving this for information. I mean, arguably, if we were to start at 7, the in-camera would be at 6. So for council, it's still the same start time. However, for the public that's traveling, that's a non-issue because they're not attending the in-camera meeting. Rather, I would suggest that if a councillor is willing to make a motion that it does, we do request that staff report back on this, because I am also hearing of fiscal constraints. So if we're going to add in more overtime costs, then really we're just costing everybody more by meeting longer. However, council does have the opportunity and the ability to manage that by thinking about how long you're speaking, how many times you're speaking, and how many questions you have back and forth, because that'll certainly cut down the meeting length. And so we own that air and we own that time together. So that's something to contemplate, that we all have a role to play. Certainly I do as chair, but it's something to consider from a preparedness perspective. So on this one, I'm just, this is for information. So you're speaking on information. Go ahead.
No, we're making a.
Okay, so let's clear this one first. So I'll call a question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. I'll turn to Councillor Pearson would like to make a follow-up motion.
That council directs staff to provide a report on the increased or
How about this, given that
potential.
there is a process, because this would require full advertising to the procedural bylaw and so forth, is that when we recess a little bit later, you could put a notice of motion forward. So then that'll allow time to have it right, and you can either read it in tonight or provide it in notice. It'll come to the next meeting. So it just gives time to have all of that clear. So we're not having to make it up
Okay,
on the fly.
right. And I don't like making it on the fly.
No.
Would we be altering the procedural bylaw, asking for a report from staff on?
To change the meeting time requires a change to the procedural
No, I
bylaw.
mean, just for the financial implications, if it was to change, like speculative. Could we do that?
Could we get a report from staff without changing? Yes, because it would be the case of getting the report and then what do we do? Then that report would then state,
Yeah.
this is what we do. So we could just receive the information and not make a change to the meeting
Correct.
time or the bylaw.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of where I was going, was this, could we tonight, I would make a motion to ask staff to give us a report on incremental costs if we change the meeting back to 7 with the in-camera being prior to the meeting, just for information. If we
Okay,
could-
well, we can do a business arising, but how about what we do is we go through the rest of the correspondence. We'll take a recess.
Yep.
And then that'll allow you time, if you could maybe type it and email it to staff. And then when we come back, we can note it as a business arising and look at that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So next is 13.4, which is the Cooper Cove Oyster, 6377 Bill Vista Place. This is requested for discussion by Councillor Beddoes. And as noted, this will be received and considered in a closed session pursuant to section 91J, I believe, of the community charter. So at this point, I don't think there's any action for you, Councillor Beddoes, because it's moving to a different agenda. Okay, so at this point, we will take a 10-minute recess. It's currently 7:36. So we can return at 7:46, and that'll then provide anyone to get a bit of a health break. And then Councillor Pearson, you can work on your notice, your business arising motion. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, everyone, if I can ask you to please take your seats. It's 7:47. I'm a minute behind. Well, that's good. Okay, thank you, everyone. I would like to draw your attention back to the agenda, please. And I'm going to start with a business arising motion that Councillor Pearson would like to put forward, please. Oh, microphone.
Looked at two motions. My motion is that council directs staff to prepare a report on financial implications should council determine that regular meetings be rescheduled to 7 PM.
Okay, that's a little bit different than what's on the screen.
I went and looked at Anastasia's one and I crafted one over here with my partner, Mr. Bateman. So it's okay. That was very sweet.
So it is
That
the
Councillor
one on the
directs staff-
screen okay?
Yes, it's perfectly fine.
Okay,
It's the same thing.
same thing.
Yep.
Okay, so that is, you're comfortable though,
Yes,
what
I-
you've read and what we see is a bit different. You're okay with what's on the screen? Okay,
Council directs staff to prepare a report on the financial implications of changing the regular council meeting start time from 6 PM to 7 PM.
okay, so that's moved by Councillor Pearson. Is there a seconder for that motion? That's seconded by Councillor Bateman. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Pearson?
Well, I think before we made a motion, like a blank motion to go forward of changing the times, it would be nice to see if the implications from staff, you know, what it would actually cost to change those meetings. I'm not adverse to having meetings go back to 7 o'clock myself personally, but I'd also like to know more information of what it would cost the district and taxpayers if we change it again or change it back.
Okay, thank you. The seconder was Councillor Bateman.
Exactly that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, the only thing is, I would like to have in there that if we do go to 7 PM, that we do the in-cameras at 6. Because that will be a cost saving and the other one will be an expense. So I mean, if we go back to 6, I mean, I know Councillor Haldane will still have to rush here to get here for 6, although we don't do an in-camera every meeting. But we won't have it tacked on the end. So those ones that are here now have to stay later to do the in-cameras. If we do the in-cameras at 6, then we get the work done. The public can get here by 7. So I would like that in.
Well, I thought.
Otherwise, I'll.
Okay, just hold on a second. Other speakers first. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
I think that changing it from 6 to 7, even though it doesn't spell it out, I hear you, there could be a potential saving. If staff could prepare us an entire report on implications, whether it's a savings or whether it's an expense. I think staff.
I would just look for a friendly amendment report on something like on the implications, comma, including financial of changing the regular council time.
Financial implications.
So this motion just says financial implications. So I'm going to propose an amendment that it would be to prepare a report on the implications, comma, including financial would be my amendment.
On the implications. Yep, fine.
Okay, so I'm moving that as amendment.
Seconded.
And just briefly, there's the implications, but I also want to look at the staff capacity, the scheduling of staff. There's other pieces in regard, some of our staff will be here late. They'll also be starting tomorrow morning at 8 in the morning. So there's other impacts there that I would like considered in addition to just the financial one. And in terms of moving the in-camera to the earlier time, it still poses a challenge for counselors that are working to be here. And we're always rushed. I would personally suggest that we abandon in-camera meetings the same day as a council. I'm drifting off the amendment. Let's deal with that first. Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. I'm going to speak on the amended motion. I'm in favor of getting the report, but I would suggest that the in-camera move to a separate day. So we're either not dealing with items rushed, because then we have to rush through to get it. If counselors are unable to join us here, There may be a challenge with some being able, according to our policy, to be able to attend virtually. If we start at 7 and go later, fatigue sets in. So it would be better to look at just scheduling the in-camera on a different day, perhaps in alignment with the committee of the whole, or on a separate day. If there's something that is immediate or time pressing, a special council meeting can be scheduled for before if it's going to be a brief item. But then it's a special council meeting, council is surveyed for their availability and so forth. So there's other implications that need to be considered in this in the whole. So I would not want to make a motion about changing the in-camera time until we look at all of that. Okay, so anything further on this? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, we're now moving into item 14, which is items removed from the consent agenda, and we'll start with 7.6. The official community plan, what we learned report. So that motion then is that council receive the official community plan, OCP bylaw number 800, what we learned report for information. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Beddoes. So it's removed. Go ahead and you can speak to it, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so as we know, we are required by the province to actually have an OCP done. We're also required to make sure we have robust community engagement. And we've been having robust community engagement almost since the time I got on council. At this point, this document reflects honestly the vision of, I think, the majority of people in the community in some way or other. What it doesn't do is necessarily address some of the tensions between how do you actually make it happen and how do you pay for it and so on and so forth. But the OCP in many ways has always been the vision of the community that guides council and staff in terms of what it's meant to do. And so we don't actually have things like all the budget implications, because instead it really boils down to all the priorities of the community, which then through council strategic plan are transferred into budget, are transferred into staff work plans and so on and so forth. So we don't necessarily have a situation where we will have all that information at the outset in the document. And for those that think the document is expensive and complicated, just trying adding that in and see what happens, especially for something where the information goes out of date so quickly and costs change all the time and priorities can be shifted. We need to get this document done in good time. We put an immense amount of work and effort into reflecting what the community wants. We do have people who think that the engagement isn't sufficient, but that's simply not what the numbers show and not what the entire process shows. At this point in time, this is simply us moving forward so that if we do need to make some significant changes, we're moving towards a full public meeting. And this is an opportunity for the public to once again weigh in. And we need to give the public their opportunities to weigh in on the document. So this is our due diligence to make sure that we move the process forward as we are required to do by the province, and to make sure that the public has this chance to actually weigh in on the document, which is what they want to do too. So let's just do it.
Okay, next speaker was Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, this is a report that we asked. Council has directed staff and the consultant to go back to the people. One of the reasons for it is one of the other is that the community wanted another opportunity to speak to a number of areas, and staff has conducted this with the consultant, and now they're just reporting back to us and what they heard, what we learned from this report. It's not debating the OCP, it's just gathering more information. And as Councillor St. Pierre says, we've been doing this for a number of years now. This is just one more report. I remember back, I had reports from, met with the Green Lobby, and they wanted to stop all building completely, just stop. And of course, we listened to them because that's our job, is to listen to everybody. This is a document for everybody. And I think that in the last couple of years, and I'm going to just concentrate on the building and trades and the developers, we've given plenty of opportunity for feedback. Our Chris Marshall has met with the numerous times, and So have I. I've been at, I don't know how many of the meetings for the Sooke Builders Association. So everybody's had a great opportunity to have some input. Now we just get the input and have not an open house, what is it? Proper hearing, and then we can get on with it. But it's just a report, and I don't understand why we're even here.
Yeah, I don't know how to put it politely, but I disagree with everything that was just said by both guys. It hasn't been a public process. For 3 years there, we sat idle and didn't do anything. We waited till the last minute to tell us we have to rush this thing through at 100 miles an hour because it has to be done by the province. And then all the stuff we've been doing in this last year is we've been talking about feedback from the public and all these get-together processes and stuff, but yet there's no implementation of anything that we've talked about. Staff says, well, it's up to council to make these changes. We're not going to make any changes. And these groups that come and say, that doesn't work, this won't work, this isn't affordable, we can't build buildings under these conditions, circumstances, and so on, yet nothing's changing in the plan. And you're saying wait till a public hearing. Yeah, because that was really easy to deal with last time when 200 people come here and fill the back room, and then you put it on hold for 3 years. So no, it's been a terrible process and hasn't been fair, hasn't been equitable, and it's been disingenuous, really, if you want to look at it from a bigger standpoint. So I would like to see the input done properly. I'd like to see it in a public forum. There's people from both sides that need to hear what both sides have to say, and we haven't done that at all. So yeah, I'm glad this report came up because it gives us a chance to say what we're saying here, but telling us that this has been a great process and a good way of doing an OCP is hogwash. It hasn't been a good process at all. So I'm not in favor of what we've been doing or how we've been getting there. And the big thing is the province doesn't even care if it's this OCP. It could be the one we're using right now, but there's little talk about that. So this document reflects what staff wants, not what we want, not what Sooke wants, not what the people want. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, so from my perspective, I'm not very good at narratives, writing a narrative and then sticking to it at all costs in an effort to get your way. So I find that this process has been long and protracted. We're in what I would define as birth pangs at the moment. There has been a great deal of public input and best efforts and professional expertise brought to bear on this document. One of our speakers earlier this evening said very clearly that this last round of input was modest, and indeed it was. And I think that there was, when in fact this final frame process began, there was a question around OCP fatigue from the public. What we need to not forget is that there are 3 earlier large packages of public input from all sorts of people. I trust my colleagues have carefully read the documentation within those documents and also this latest package, because within this latest package is regarding the development permit areas, which are such a point of contention within the community at large. The Sooke Builders Association did come through with a very substantial point-by-point review of the development permit guidelines. And our Mr. Riley came back with some very clear statements about what an OCP is. I'll just quote out of context, but these are some of the points he made in answer to very specific items among the 10 development permit areas and the exemptions. The intent of this OCP is to provide high-level guidance to encourage awareness and innovation, not add new technical requirements. It provides high-level direction towards long-term carbon reduction. Policy is intended as broad direction, not a mandate. It is not intended to create rigid requirements or to conflict with other guidelines with the BC Building Code or the Sooke Building Code. It is not intended as a requirement nor to override market preferences or building code standards. Guidelines should provide direction for best practices, but cannot impose technical standards beyond the building code. DPAs are aspirational, practical, and within the district's authority. So those are just some random out of context, as I say, quotations from that particular document. And I trust that rather than sticking to narratives, we actually try to find the middle way. I'm not very good either at absolute statements that are just black and white. There is a gray area everywhere. And what these documents are attempting to do is nudge and direct the community in directions that have been identified through the public process. Yeah, so I think that the key point here tonight is that we're to receive this document, the What We Learned report. In addition, to add to that pile on the Let's Talk OCP page of earlier documents, and to get staff to move forward with the next red line revision in which we will see the kind of nuances and added clarity and to the DPAs in particular and other sections of the document. And we'll see that on October 27th. So I just hope we can move forward without making it into a dramatic Battle of Gettysburg kind of situation here. We need an OCP. We need a new OCP. And we need a modernized, clear, clean document. The 2010, anyway, I could go on, and I will at future meetings. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor McMath, please.
Can you see me? Oh, hold on. Councillor Bateman is right. This space especially should be a room of decorum. And it's hard though, because we are surrounded by passionate people. But I do think that in future steps, rather than the articulation of emotions, it's that people bring an amendment to a language or a definition. I think a lot of the tension that you see and the frustration that you see sometimes is due to poor communication. So when Councillor St. Pierre says, well, look at the numbers, that's not a good quantifier of quality communication necessarily. I would use the 30-meter setback. That came through. No one's quite sure where that stemmed from. We had a huge meeting. We had these large conversations. I think personally, I responded to 100 emails about that setback and how we decided we're going to rescind that. It's going to go to 15. And we had an open house and it was back there. So I've used this example before, but it's a strong one where you cause this stress on people who don't understand what's going on. Then you make a promise to them, a commitment to them that you're not going to do that, you're going to fix that. And then they come back and they've trusted you to that point, and then now you've lost that trust. So it's kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's those kinds of pieces. So rather than, you hate the document as a whole, bring what you would change, and then we'll have that conversation. I do still think there is a lack of clarity in some of the language, and that's why we're still seeing that pushback where if a staff has to individually respond to a section of the OCP to explain it, to me, that just is not necessarily that it's not the right idea. It's that the language needs to be changed and needs to be clarified. And then perhaps once you have that clear understanding, that's going to alleviate so much of this built up, pent up piece. And the cautionary thing I would touch on is, yes, we do need to have an OCP that is mandated. However, there is a cost to rushing a project. So for however you feel about it, I think that each person should be coming prepared with what they would change, how they would clarify, and how they would help someone who has a different perspective on a topic understand that. And then we together as a group would clarify the language. So that's all I wanted to say on those pieces.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And just for everyone's clarity, so what we are receiving is the What We Learned report. That would sort of close off the public engagement piece on October 27th. And the reason why staff have not changed the document is because the current draft is sitting at second reading, which means that council is sitting with the document, which means it's ours that's sitting. So only council can make the changes. So what is happening next is that on October 27th, the table of changes and suggested recommendations to change will be presented by staff on what they've heard in this final round of engagement. Then what council could do is rescind second reading. And then to Councillor McMath's point, say, okay, implement these changes, edit this section, do this, do that, or nothing, or send it back out or something, but it's sitting at second reading. So it needs to come back to council to be actioned otherwise. So going back to the timeline that council approved, the intention then is to close this off, receive the table based on what we've heard recently, rescind second reading, initiate the changes or not at council's will, then potentially look to move second reading, then it goes off to a public hearing where the public then has a clean version on the changes that council has proposed. However, should you have an improvement to language based on what you've heard, then it does make sense that you provide that at the next regular council meeting and say, I suggest this would be cleaner language to understand, or whatever that change may be. And then it'll move forward. In terms of when this process started, it actually started in September of 2016. September of 2016, so 9 years ago. And then since then, different planning master plans were adopted. There was different staff that changed. Different provincial regulations have come into effect, leading us to this moment. So yes, it started and stopped. It's been lurchy, but in some ways that was due to response from the community. I recall a reason why it was put on hold was because the development community actually requested that we update the transportation master plan, the Parks and Trails master plan first. So then that work went ahead and the OCP was put on hold. Those plans were adopted, the OCP followed rather than the other way around. So I can dig out all that material, but I am looking at an actual Sooke News Mirror article that launched this back on September the 15th of 2016 in that time period. And there was some focus groups that occurred, and a lot of that data is remaining relevant today. Well, some of it's changed. So that is where we're at. Today, we're just closing. There's information, so you can vote against it, but how do you unsee what you have already read? It's already been received. If council chooses to do nothing, it's still received for information because it's publicly in our agenda. So it is here, and then the next step will come in 2 weeks. The red line and table of changes has been coming along so that it gives all of us, it's a lot of material to wade through, but then you could see, okay, staff have heard this feedback, here's a proposed change. So it's allowing us to follow the bouncing ball as it moves ahead. However, you could either agree with that change or do nothing. That'll be the decision of council at the time. Anything else from anyone? Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, lots has been said around the table, and there's, under the Local Government Act, and I know people will challenge me on this, there is no requirement to have an OCP. It's in the local government. We do, it's best practices, and I don't disagree with that. However, we are under no mandate to pass a new OCP. We're under a mandate to implement SMU legislation by the end of the year. That's the only requirement that the province is on us right now. Where I'm disappointed is that the plan came back to council, but it went through the land use committee, what we learned. And then that's all we got to look at is what we learned. We didn't get to have any feedback in that session, which I think would have been critical moving this project forward. So I think the mayor's outlined a couple of things that I understand better now, is that the land use committee would have been a great venue for an informal discussion on multiple issues in the OCP. We didn't have that opportunity. It was, okay, let's report for information. Well, it feels like it's on this fast track to getting to the next station, which is approval. And I think there is some critical steps between here and approval. There's lots of great information in this OCP because it encompasses everything. There's some critical pieces that are missing. That 2016 affordability, we've added a bunch of complexity into affordability for our housing. This plan is for everybody in our community. We have to remember that. We get this emotional charge and somebody said, well, it's for everybody because I speak to the builders and the complications of what they have to do. I'm glad that somebody said it's for everybody because our economic engine right now in Sooke is development and building and jobs and all of those things. So it's a critical piece. And it feels like I was told 3 times in meetings that, no, we can't make any changes. We recognize that there's some opposition to this, but we can't make any changes, to the mayor's point, because it's with council. Council has to order the changes. So if that's the next step, then we ought to make some changes in it and streamline it, but be cognizant of all of the things that are in that wieldy document. It's going to cost people more money to live in Sooke because of this OCP. It's going to cost young families more money to have a house because of this OCP. We have to have that weight on our shoulders of making those decisions. There's some good things in there and some that maybe I don't agree with. However, the bigger picture is we have to be socially responsible in our community. However, we have to be cognizant of the fact it's going to cost more money. Without a plan behind something, knowing what it's going to cost, we're going to flow bylaw after bylaw after bylaw. We pass this OCP. It's going to be a drinking out of a fire hose, passing bylaws coming over the next year. I can see that as clear as day. So anyways, this is a report for information. I have no tools to oppose this other than my one vote. That's it.
Okay, so I'm going to add something to provide a tool to council if you want or not. So when this comes to us at the next meeting and we are looking to potentially, there's 2 options. You can rescind second reading or you can move straight to a public hearing. You can leave it as is and go to a public hearing. That is an option. Another option is you can rescind second reading, direct staff to make changes, and you could request that a special land use meeting be scheduled. So it doesn't cut the land use meeting out. It's just the land use meeting is a standing committee, an extension of council. So that's why the process is, okay, if you feel it would be good for them to benefit, then you can make that motion at the time and staff will look to schedule, or maybe you want a committee of the whole that you invite the land use committee. There's things to think about it. Send it to land use, schedule a committee of the whole. Staff will then survey the members for their availability and find a date and time to do that. So that is an option. The public is available to attend. It'll be public. They can weigh in and attend as they like. And maybe you want to have it in the evening to accommodate people that are working. I'm just putting it out there that those are options and tools should you decide to motivate on that. So that is an option. Then when it comes back with those recommendations, let's say that goes that way, then the land use committee is making these recommendations. It'll come back to council to be ratified, either remain on the consent agenda, be pulled off and rediscussed. And then finally, when it receives a new second reading, it'll go to a public hearing. So there is a tool available to council to consider. It's just for us, remember, it's been sitting at second reading. So it is stuck with council until we do something otherwise to either pass it or to amend it. Now, I'll also share that the province has updated. So I'm going to just say that they have, as of August the 25th, updated and in their website have stated that local governments are required to have an OCP. It's regional districts that are exempt from this because a regional district is confined of local government and have a regional context statement. So they have amended their legislation and they are requiring all local governments to have an official community plan. So that is the change. We are required to have one. We must update it every 5 years, and then it goes through a number of different steps about it, what it must have, what it is optional to have, and so forth. And then it also in here notes that we have to have it updated by the end of this year. So there is a ticking clock of what we have to meet. And our challenge, as we've learned with the province and Bill 44, when we pushed back a little, is then their default is fine. You don't receive any funding from us and you will not be able to apply for any grants. So that is where we're left. Do I like it? No, but it's just the reality of where we are. And the other point is they are eliminating public hearings. So for some, as to where we hear this should be a tool for developers, why is the public weighing in? It's because public hearings will be eliminated. And the public will not have a say on development happening in their community, which is why the OCP must be adopted and why it has to be updated every 5 years, because that is the one and only time that the public can weigh into the development happening within their community. There is no longer the ability to hold a public hearing. That's why this is no longer just a broad visioning document. It's becoming legislative in nature. Remember, we are told we are creatures of the province, and this is the work that we have to do. And their argument would say that they have provided funding along the way for us to deal with the small scale multi-unit housing, other related funding to bring our development and all that up to speed and so forth. So any criticism, I just get met with the mayor's being disingenuous. We have provided X, Y, and Z to the community of Sooke. So get on and build more housing and punch those roads through. So I'll leave it at that, but there is a process for council to follow. And I just recommend that the red line report that's in here, the table of changes and the like, are really what is critical and the pieces you should be focusing on in preparedness for the next meeting. But those are other options and tools that council has should you decide to exercise them at the next regular meeting. I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre and then I'm going to call the question.
I just want to speak to a lot of the stuff that's just been said and specifically to councillors that at this point are unhappy with the process. I really appreciate the mayor's laying out that, as Councillor Pearson has been asking, there are a few steps that we can take along the way. I remember, because I chaired the previous land use committee, I was extraordinarily disappointed that the document didn't make its way there because we had so many representatives of the building community that were participating in a really open, trusting sort of way. And I would have loved, it would have been so much better for the document and for the entire process if it had been brought to the land use committee. And I was disappointed in the last meeting of the land use because as the chair, the decision was whether to move forward the What We Learned report, not to actually discuss the contents again. And as Councillor Pearson pointed out, we didn't get a chance to discuss the contents. The Land Use Committee is an excellent place to discuss the contents. It's an excellent place to do, as Councillor McMath was suggesting, come forward with your suggestions, Councillor Haldane. Let's get them in there. Let's make some changes. Let's actually make this work. This is the place where we can actually work together towards what Councillor Payton was saying, getting that gray zone working and making sure that we can actually make something work for everyone. Ideally, I would love it if we could actually unanimously move this forward with the intent of doing just that sort of work together. Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please. Those opposed, Councillor Pearson is opposed. Councillor Haldane is now opposed, so that carries. And we're moving on to 7.7. So this here is the following supplemental materials related to the What We Learned report on the official community plan are provided and received for information. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Same as before.
Councillor Bateman. Anything from anyone else? Councillor Haldane, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, similar to this report, it comes forward and it's talking about there, and I read through the whole thing about riparian areas, and we had a meeting with staff and the building groups and stuff like that. And they had a qualified environmental professional there that says QEPs are never required on the ocean. And I see through this other report, staff saying that, oh, well, the Ministry of DFO and land management and all them are saying that this is a best practices thing, yada, yada, for soil erosion, things like that. So, I mean, if we want to have equitable, if we want to be reasonable, I mean, we have waterfront property owners who've had properties in this town for 5, 6, 7 generations, and they're going to be expected to follow by a whole new set of rules, give up land, do a bunch of stuff. They've already landscaped, farmed, they've done a ton of things to these properties for a long time, and then we're going to be pushing this down their throat. I don't like the idea of it or how we're doing it, but I do agree if we can come to some consensus on this, I would be happy with that. Some more dialogue, because there's a lot of people that are going to be affected by a lot of things that are going on in these plans, and we're asking for professional QEPs done with, you know, $1,500 reports or soil erosion studies, all this stuff. Somebody wants to do some things on their property. We're eroding people's ability to take care of their own land. Not everybody can afford to use all these experts and all these people in order to be able to do some small things to their property. There's a lot of docs in Sooke. There's a lot of people who are retired yet again with very limited income, but these are old family properties, and we're going to handcuff them from the ability to be able to do things, and take away property rights is a big thing. And it was also came up that some of these assessments and QEPs and stuff are going to apply to people who are upland, not even on the water, if they want to do things to the property. We don't have a tree bylaw. We don't have a bunch of things. Again, we're attacking people's property rights, and it's going to get a town that's going to be divided. We're going to be playing Hatfield and McCoy's, and I don't want that to be the outcome of this, of the plans of everything. Anyhow, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we all know what we need to do. Okay, so on that, I will call the question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. We're moving on into, let's see here. Council verbal reports. Who would like to go first? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, we had our C Park meeting and had a look at our budget and came up with some preliminary numbers. Just want to let you know that we also had a robust discussion in regards to our capital reserve fund, and that is to give us some flexibility when things come up. So the first thing came out of the meeting is that C Park is going gangbusters down there. Very well received by the public. Everything is working, ticking along very well. Staff is doing an excellent job. But we did a lot of discussion on the budget. It was very well presented. And originally it came up with that because of inflationary trends and wages and everything, that we were going to have to ask for, this I'm talking about Sooke by itself right now, is $20 on your assessment for C Park for next year, 2026. There was a robust discussion about our capital reserve fund. And again, this leads us in a very bad way. And we found this out in Sooke too. When we have a higher healthy reserve fund, we're better able to go for grants and things. So we revised the budget, and it looks like we will look for a $27 increase for the Juan de Fuca assessment for the Sooke part, $18 for the Juan de Fuca for just for interest. And those are approximate numbers because there's a lot of things come into play. And just like last year, we projected $20 increase, and it came in at 15. It depends on the houses, the values, and what's being built, and there's a lot to be done in that. So that's where we sit right now at $27, and that now goes to the CRD for their approval.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Other councillors, go ahead, St. Pierre.
Very brief. I attended the Sooke Mental Health Fair because Lord knows I need it. And it was a good event with lots of booths and good support in terms of obviously the fentanyl crisis and so on and so forth. It's good to see all the players in town working together, connecting, and actually making their services available. There were different workshops, excellent workshops available as well. Recommend it when it happens again.
Thank you. Other speakers? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay. Yeah, I was at that mental health fair as well. You know, but the key point, I think one of the key points is that we're all dealing with various kinds of, on a spectrum of mental health issues. Anxiety was the theme. And in these days, and I feel it within myself, anxiety is a rising tide for a lot of really legitimate reasons. not least. Well, anyway, so that was great. And I went to a workshop with Jan Rayner Thorne and others and learned a number of strategies, which I will attempt to practice here in council chambers to keep myself grounded. I participated with the Friends of Sooke Park Society in a cleanup of Pine Ridge Park as a prelude to the Spooky Pumpkin Walk on November 1st. I attended the CRD Performing Arts Facilities Service meeting a week prior to the board's decision to approve this new service. It's a major win for the Juan de Fuca Performing Arts Society's long game plan to establish a regionally significant theater on the West Shore, which would likely be in Langford or Colwood. They can access annual planning grants of up to $120,000 through this new service. They can get staff support for grant writing, future support for operational costs, and significantly for Sooke residents will be within a 20-minute drive of a significant theater, 400 seats approximately. Not a school theater. EMCS is a school theater, and hence the students get first rights at. And this will be a truly professional space. And there is also part of this service a grant system that will allow West Shore arts groups to book the Royal and McPherson theaters at discounted rates. So that might be a door open for the Harbor Players or others to take their show on the road. Yeah, and it's some other things, but I think that's good enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others, counselors, go ahead.
Nothing to report today.
That's okay. Counselor Haldane? Counselor McMath?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Lastly, for myself, Counselor Bateman touched on the Capital Region District and the performing arts. So there is an alternative approval process that will be underway for participating municipalities only. The ones that are not participating would be the electoral areas, with the exception of Pender Island. And you've covered all of that. And then just thank you for covering the work down at Sea Park. It's a growing and busy facility. And everything that they do is really hands-on. And so in some cases, I'll use the hot tub. The entire chlorination system had failed, which is why it was closed a couple of years ago, and the staff had gone on a search of antiquities globally to find the related parts that simply are no longer available. So that's why the whole system had to be replaced. I learned that the entire golf course is aerated with a pushing walk behind aerator. And the tines, for example, have completely worn out, no longer available. It'll be replaced. So it's very hands-on, which is why the need to have some funds in the capital reserve are important. And in the overall scheme, we'll see where it lands. But more will come on that. Otherwise, in addition to Thanksgiving, it was a bit of hockey. And again, our teams are very busy getting as much ice time as they can. So I've seen many different arenas within the area. We should be very proud of the facilities that we have, and also much to perhaps the chagrin of some of our staff. I'm often exploring various trails within our community to see what's happening with them. So look forward to some of those connections opening fully for others. I'll just leave it at that. So thank you very much for your time. And on that note, did we not have a meeting since? Okay, I'm blurring together. Would you like to speak to it?
It happens, right?
Yeah, so I do want to recognize all of the organizers that were part of National Truth and Reconciliation Day. Significant events starting at Murray Park with the walk all the way into John Phillips Memorial. Some things we've learned is a new sound system may be more beneficial to the crowd, because the crowd it's very difficult to hear. And also with being outside, the sound really changes in a different way. So very grateful to the lead organizer with Catherine Strongwind, but I know our staff, Ms. Moog, was actively involved there as well. And there was a number of vendors. It was quite a moving day. So thank you to those that performed and participated and to all those that were present. There was also a small vigil held for the murdered and missing women, Indigenous girls. As you know, out front is the metal artwork that was installed to commemorate those losses. So there was a small vigil that was held here on the Saturday of October 1st. So it was around the same time as the market. For those that would have visited the market would have heard the drumming. And there's some takeaways there on perhaps what we could do going forward. So there's always a learning opportunity as these events are being held. But just grateful to see the initiatives that have been taken underway in our community. So, and again, the learning is every day, not just one day a year. Yes, Councillor St. Pierre.
Sorry, I did forget about Truth and Reconciliation, and I did want to mention something specific. It was an amazing use of the space that we have in the park.
Yeah.
They had vendors, they had Métis jiggers, they had amazing singer by two young men. I just can't believe how I get like, honestly, when I told some of my friends and family it was going down, do you want to come with me? It's like, eh. If they'd known that it was really going to be a party as well as a Truth and Reconciliation, I think they might have shown. So I just want to let everybody know. This was amazing, okay, on all sorts of levels, touching, but also a lot of fun. So make sure you show up next year. All right, let's go.
Awesome. Thank you. So on that, I will look for a motion to adjourn to closed. And that would be that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to the following subsection of the community charter. 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably expect it to harm the interests of the municipality. J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. 2, a part of a council meeting must be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. So moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you to the members of the public who attended tonight, as well as those viewing via YouTube. Have a good evening. Yeah. Okay, I'm in the wrong agenda. Yeah, let's just take we're gonna recess for 5 minutes. We're just give us, not recess, but 5 minutes just to reset up for the in-camera.
Megan, if you're online, can you hear us? We're just recessing for 5 minutes.
Copy that.